Welcome to Successfully Ambiguous, the podcast that asks, when opportunity knocks, will you be ready to answer? I'm Christine Brooks Cappadocia, Assistant Vice President of Continuing Studies at York University. Have you ever wondered how to bring your full self to a job interview, or thought that you had to hide who you are? In this episode, we'll meet Richard Pinnock, a champion for diversity and inclusion. And he'll give us some really practical advice on how to showcase the diversity of thought and the value you bring to a job, help the employer be more successful. So now let's open the door and meet Richard Pinnock. Well, welcome, Richard. It's such a pleasure to see you. We've had very similar career paths in many, many ways. In fact, I think early on, before the founding of the School of Continuing Studies, you had my job.
That's right. It goes back about 15 years ago.
For our viewers that don't know, Richard right now sits on our Program Advisory Council for the Diversity and Equity in Action program, which is a program that is near and dear to my heart, because the reason I do what I do is to make sure that everybody has equal or as equitable opportunity as we can in the current environment. The whole purpose of this show is to help people who are trying to figure out their way through the new non-linear world of work. How do you get there? And you've had this amazing career, right? You've started out at McGill, and with your degree in McGill, you went on to York. You've worked in the private sector, the public sector. You've worked in continuing education. You've worked for some of the biggest companies in North America, and really used each of those platforms to really make a difference, really emphasizing equity and opportunity for all. I want to bring you back to an early job interview that you had, where I think it was a paint company for metallics, where you came in and you aced the interview only to be told, no, I can't hire you. I think this is something a lot of our students are facing. Can you tell me a little bit about that experience, and then what I know it's changed your entire career and the focus of your career. Tell me what you learned from it as a job candidate.
Well, interviews and finding jobs have always been difficult. Thanks for sharing that story. And again, really appreciate being able to be with you here, Christine, and congrats on the great work that you are doing, as well as the York, continuing education program. It's very, very, very important. But yeah, I graduated from McGill. I had very good marks. At that time, it was the recession going on, and jobs are very, very scarce. But I was at the time president of our fraternity at McGill, which is very unusual. In every case, every aspect of my life, I was typically one of the only very few minorities, in these roles, but never really bothered me. I just always tried to do my best and excel and learn and have fun and engage with people and so on. So a rare job came up at this paint company. I showed up for the interview, and the lady there said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Yeah, Richard Pinnock. I'm here for the interview." She's like, "Oh, okay. Well, I've been here for 14 years. We have a aptitude test. There's 50 questions, and you have 12 minutes. So don't worry about finishing it. Nobody has ever finished in the 14 years that I've been here." And I'm like, "Okay." So she gave me the test paper. I sat down, and off I go, bang, 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 bang. She set one of those timers, those egg timer things. So the tick, tick, tick. So I'm like, bam, 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 bam. She's in her cubicle, and then not a cubicle, it's a little office. So then I knocked on the door. She looked up and she said, "Yes," like thinking, what did this guy not understand? And I'm like, "I'm finished." She's like, "Finished?" Takes the exam thing from me. Says, "Have a seat." I'm like, "Okay," like I thought I was in trouble. She comes out. She's quite surprised. She had a look on her face, and I said, "How did I do?" She said, "You did very well." And I said, "Oh, how did I score?" She said, "You got 44 right." And I said, "What was the highest score in your 14 years?" She said, 45. But remember, I finished in 11 minutes. So that's when I was thinking, yes, And she said, "Unfortunately, I have to tell you," a very solemn look on her face. She said, "I'm not going to be able to put you forward because I'm worried that I'll lose my job." So that was like, you know, kind of a shocker. And at that point, it still resonates with me today. I felt like shattered, you know. I was looking forward. It was a beautiful sunny day. Just drove up from McGill and I was a little nervous and so on. But I thought to myself, you know, what can I do? And I ask students when I share this story, what should I have done? Some people say, oh, you should have talked to the major, the big boss. But it was the big boss that was telling her to do this, right? So that wouldn't work. Jobs are so scarce. I was one of the few from the Career Center at McGill to actually get out on a job. And the last thing I want is to hear that somehow I'm trying to play the race card, you know, to get the job or whatever. So I looked up, it was a sunny day. I still remember the sun on my face. And I said, I'm going to do whatever I can to help other Canadians avoid what I just went through. And this is why I'm here with you today.
You think it's changing? I keep looking south of the border and thinking you know, it's changing for I was very hopeful up until about 6 months ago that things were changing for the better. I'm not so sure anymore. How do you feel that the climate is?
Well, I think population wise, or in terms of representation,
Yeah.
you know, diversity is about diversity is about representation. It was initially all about diversity. Rosalie Abella from the Abella Commission in 1985 enacted the Employment Equity Act in 1986. And that was to increase representation of the four designated groups. Just to refresh, it's women, people with disabilities, indigenous persons with disabilities, indigenous people, and visible minorities. And since that, we're in our 40th year, if you can believe that, Christine. 40 years have gone by. And while we've made some gains, at the time, women represented approximately 20% of senior management roles, and now we're hovering at around 30%. Women of color are currently only 6%, right? So, but when you look at Indigenous people and when you look at people with disabilities, there's been very limited gains over the last 40 years. So initially, the idea was to focus on getting women. That's when we called it diversity in those days. Diversity, right? It was about getting women into senior roles. And the driver behind that was this idea of diversity of thought. We want to get different thinking in decision making and so on. So there was a time when companies were actively looking. I was actually hired my first job by this woman named Meg Mitchell from Caldwell Partners. She always got the gigs to find a woman for a board, or we're looking for a woman, right? So she developed this cadre of women and then decided to start her own company. So Meg Mitchell and Associates, Thomas Mitchell and Associates. And she had the account with Pure Later Courier. So my first job, marketing coordinator, I was actually hired by a woman who specialized in hiring women. So it's interesting that it took a woman like to get me hired. And you know, throughout my career, it seems like almost every role I've had, I've been hired by a woman. But the point I'm making is that the initial push was about diversity of thought. Clearly, we've made gains in Canada, moving significantly. And at the same time, while you know we look at the border and we're kind of distracted by what's going on at the border, um, we also have to make mention that the top 10 countries of origin in 2022 of immigration into Canada, 2022, were all visible minority or racialized minorities. Um, you know, number four being Nigeria. Many people don't realize Nigeria is number four country of origin. So with that comes highly educated, well-heeled, very sophisticated STEM, you know, deep in STEM, especially in the AI area and so on, technology. So there are opportunities. Obviously, if you have the talent and you can articulate the fact that you're the one to do the job, there's many, many, many more opportunities than existed, say, 20 years ago. Again, I'm focusing on minorities and visible minority group.
It's interesting. We have a lot of students from Nigeria, but it's very hard to get a student visa in Canada if you're coming from an African country. Far harder than some of the other areas we bring students in from. Going back to your story and much of your experience, you know, here we have somebody who is clearly among our best and our brightest, who is, you know, you aced that test, you did better than anyone had. The door was shut in your face for something that somebody else's prejudice. So much of finding a job, particularly and growing your career, it happens to be knowing the right person at the right time. And that's why diversity and inclusion is so important, right? Opening doors for others to make sure that we can, you know, it's not just good business, it's also important that we hold the door open for others.
Mhm.
Were there any, and as a Canadian, you have benefits that maybe an international student who's new to the country might not have. How do you have any advice for people who are trying to navigate that who you know part of the job hunt?
The whole situation with visas and immigration in that sense is rather complex, and it's changing. And I don't think it's being run very well. We've had a big increase in immigration in the last couple of years. I think hovering about 500,000. Relative to the U.S., we're I think per capita 3 times greater than the immigration, and about 70% of our immigration is visible minority again at Quebec. So yeah, what you're asking about a very difficult situation. I'm thinking about the people that are here that left great jobs, maybe had servants in their house, whether it be from South Asia or wherever, and now they're working at Walmart as their second job. First job is driving Uber Eats. And I say repeatedly, it's time for Canada to help new Canadians stop driving Ubers and start driving the economy. I always say, and sometimes I get in trouble. So for the newcomers and the student issue, I guess it applies as well. What I'm going to say, but um, it's a two-way street, right? So clearly we have the technical capabilities for those people interviewing, right? In countries that are more hierarchical, like let's say the Philippines or say India, where you went to school, it's like, oh my goodness, you went to the India Institute of Technology. Oh my goodness, what? Right? And oh yes, I was in the class of 2008. 2008, at that time there were 75,000 students applying for a couple of few hundred positions. You go for a job interview and somebody here in Canada is interviewing, they're like, India Institute of Technology, is that like a real university? And you have to be very careful what you say next, and your eyes and your eyebrows and everything, because in short order you will be labeled like you have a chip on your shoulder or you have some problem or whatever, right? So again, if you just let it go, you're going to probably find that you're going to get underevaluated. You mentioned the term prejudice, right? It's just really a lack of understanding. People don't really know. It's up to you to manage your brand and to speak up. You come into that same interview and you're very full of life. You're smiling. Hello, I'm so happy to be here. I just came from Tim Hortons, that kind of thing. And I get in trouble. Well, what do you mean? People have to go to Tim Hortons? Yeah, you have to fit into the culture of the organization. Every organization has a different culture, but generally, you have to be aware of the Canadian culture. Oh boy, Maple Leafs lost another close one last night. Maple Leafs, what's that? Is that something that falls out of a tree? No, it's something that falls out of the playoffs every year. But if you don't understand that, it's going to be hard. And that's, I think, an important hurdle. How do you do that? Just get engaged. Start watching TV, talk to people, practice your skills. Sometimes people are from different countries are worried about speaking to strangers and so on. Go up to police officers, like test yourself. Excuse me, how do I get to Richmond Hill? Start practicing. Canadian people are generally very friendly, very helpful, and so on. So we have to get out of this comfort zone. Your job, your future, your children's future depends on it. So I think it's really, really important. As I said, I've gotten in trouble a few times suggesting that, why do people have to fit in? And say, well, you don't have to fit in, but if you want to get the job, I think it's very important consideration.
It makes a difference, right? It's
Mhm.
I say this as somebody who started out in the arts. I've had to learn about hockey and things that just would have never interested me before. I at least know I know what I don't know, a hat trick
It's
is.
called the puck.
It's called a puck. I do have a puck behind me. I did host some events with Pat Quinn. Um,
Right.
so, but that's that code. It's learning about the broader culture and showing interest, right?
Yeah.
It's some of
Well,
those
it's coming in
social
like
skills.
on fire, right? I'm ready to go. Big smile. I can't wait. I'm aligned with what I've read. I'm so impressed with what you're doing in terms of helping different communities, but more importantly, how you're leveraging AI on your interview process. It's fantastic. I've been studying this. I can't wait to join your team. I have so much that I can contribute. I'm really excited about the opportunity. And then, of course, you have to know the STAR method, and you have to be able to do this authentically and with interest, right? Have fun with it. Doesn't work first time, then you'll try the second time, try the third time. But just to go in, oh, I'm here for the interview, and you're thinking, okay, another 3 minutes, I'm going to get kicked out of here. That's not the right attitude. As I said, your son, your daughter, they think you're Superman or Superwoman, and they think you're the strongest person in the world, and you're beautiful. And then you go in, and you're all beat up, and you feel discouraged, and so on. Somehow you have to get over it. I would suggest finding a sort of a coach, right? Somebody that can help you and talk to you. And it's important for you to take notes. What worked? What did you feel good about? Et cetera, et cetera. So those are just some ideas. But, that hasn't changed in the last 40 years. It's always been like that. Interestingly, a lot of newcomers to Canada, they don't see this diversity. If you're coming from, let's say, parts of China, yes, there are differences in China, but not to the same extent that we have so much diversity here among teams and so on. So people are almost like in shock. They're like, whoa, like I haven't seen this before. And then they are now finding themselves unbelievably in the minority when they came from a country where they were perhaps status wise, education wise, monetarily, they were in the elite or the top. And now they find themselves kind of at the bottom. And it's a very frustrating position to be in.
Anytime you're out of your comfort zone, it is challenging. I love what you said about the interviews because as a hiring manager, you by the time somebody gets to an interview, you want them to succeed, right? You've already invested in them from that little, 2 pages of paper on the resume. And yet candidates very often will walk in and be scared and
Mhm.
quiet and reserved. And you just want them to give it their all and to see who they are because you are looking for fit at that point, right?
Yeah. Well,
On paper, they can do the job.
fit's another tough word. When I was in elementary school, that's when I was kind of introduced to the N word for the first time. I lived on a very multicultural street. We're like the United Nations. The catchment for our school was obviously beyond our street. We had a Jewish family, Italian, Greek. My next door neighbors were Japanese. So we had all this diversity going back in the days of multiculturalism with Pierre Elliott Trudeau. And then when you come to a school and there's people whose parents have maybe different perspectives and they use different language and they have different, stereotypical beliefs and so on. As a young child, 5, 6 years old, it kind of hits you in the face. So this is something I've been navigating for some time. And, I learned at a young age that you are the master of your future, right? So you can, if you have, I mean, people are living on average of 84 years, right? So unless you're one of those people who's going to live to 190 years old that they're finding in the US, I would suggest you use every day very judiciously and make it about reaching your full potential. We all have a God-given capacity, right? And I think it behooves each of us to to do what we can. Again, not everybody has children, right? But I'm saying if you have children or if you have family, you have parents you're trying to take care of, maybe back in your homeland, you got to get on it. Like just go for it and turn it on, right? And I've seen people that are just so magnanimous. Like they have a big smile. They're like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to do a workout thing today. Who wants to join me at noon?" And you're like, "This woman's crazy." Like full of energy. Her branding is. But I can tell you, at the end of the day, it takes time, right? It takes energy out of you. It's not that people are just all happy and friendly like that. No, everything is quite deliberate. And after a while, your brain starts getting familiar and you get, the amygdala is not telling you to run and hide and to be scared and so on. It's telling you you're okay because you're comfortable and you're safe, right? So I think practice makes perfect. And, we tend to have a very emotional approach to some of this. Oh, I'm not getting a chance. And so I remember I was a very young man. And I said, that's it. I'm going to do everything I can to help others. I recently, I was at an award ceremony. I had received an award with one of the with a not-for-profit organization that I'm on the board, and I got an email and it said you've been selected for. I'm like, what's this? Like someone messed up. They're sending it to me. They're supposed to send it to the recipient, right? I mean, hey, I think you guys made a mistake. I got the thing for the Four Pillars Award. And like, no, no, no. The board selection, they've selected you. I'm like, what? So I've been with this organization for 18 years volunteering. And so for my speech, I did a calculation. And if you have, let's say, 20 youth sitting down, that's 20 seats like 20 youth in seats, right? You have over the summer 5 leadership sessions, so that's a total of 100 youth in seats. Some will come for 2 sessions, some come for all, some come for one, but the total is 100 youth in seats. I have just surpassed 10,000 youth in seats. Yeah, so I've really done my part. There's no question. I work extensively with the police, the Yippee program. In fact, I don't know if you see this little guy here.
I'm just waiting to ask you about that actually.
Yeah,
That is your
that
King
is
Charles, is it not?
yeah, that's the key. Actually, I think I have it right. It's I don't, really. I just wanted to wear it for you,
This
but
is congratulations
yeah,
and well deserved. It looks like we are making some good decisions in who to give these medals to.
yeah, that's
Congratulations.
the King Charles III Coronation Medal for service to country, community, and field of endeavor. So again, behind the scenes, I'm helping people. I work with people. For those that are interested, really keen, that want to connect with me, I'm available on LinkedIn, and I try to make time every week. I put aside about 3 hours for interacting with people, young people, but a lot of immigrants and so on. Again, the technical issues around student visas and so on, it's not really much that I can help with. But for those people that are here and have immigrated and they bought the house and they're wondering, oh my goodness, I thought it would take me 6 months to get back up to my earning level. And it's more like about 5 years before you get close to what you were earning in your country of origin. So this has issues in terms of calculating your funds, and it's very complicated. So, but I think, the thing that's most important, and I encourage you, and I love what's going on at York University with your DEI and action program. Um, this gives people an opportunity, because the one thing that visible minorities have to realize in Canada, or, racialized minorities, that's a new term, Employment Equity Act still refers to visible minorities. But by 2051, the majority of this country will identify as a member of a racialized group or a visible minority group. Do you remember Y2K? I don't know,
Yeah,
you're still kind of young. Do you remember the Y2K
I
thing?
do.
Yeah. We all thought our microwaves are going to blow up and all that, right? And that's how fast time's gone by. It's been 25 years since then. In another 25 years, the majority of this country will identify as a member of a racialized or visible minority group. So the question is, what are companies in the private sector doing about this? What about public sector? What about not-for-profit? And that's why it was so interesting to see the Diversity in Action program put together. It's something that I tried to launch, actually, Christine, 15 years earlier. There were a number of issues. You said about timing when it comes to jobs and so on. That's another important thing. So the timing then was a bit premature, but right now I think it's critically important. So the one gift I want to share with newcomers who are visible minorities is that you understand the language, you understand the culture, you understand the market, you understand all of these things. And companies are going to use the same approach, I hope, that York's School of Continuing Studies, what's it called? Yeah, the
Yeah,
York
School of Continuing Studies.
Studies. The approach that you used to create the Program Advisory Council was based on diversity of thought. You wanted to get different practitioners, different people. Let's not just do the same content. Let's talk to professionals, and let's talk to LGBT and minority, and let's talk to the people that have been there and done it and experienced it, so that you can prepare your students. That's the diversity of thought approach. And I was thinking about the conversation, and we talk about what's going on in the U.S. and let's not even get into the tariffs and all that. That's a whole other ball, of wax. But yeah, this idea that DEI is perhaps dead. And what are we going to do? What's next for DEI? Remember, back with Rosalie Abella, the main rationale, the driving force behind the Employment Equity Act was to drive diversity of thought. Getting women involved would provide better solutions, better creativity, more innovation, etc. So the same is true. If not, I mean, it's stood the test of time. We're still looking on that track, and I think for Canada, we have all the resources, we have all the people, we've got the best and brightest in the world. Too many people driving Ubers, but nonetheless, now is the time to really capitalize on 40 years of, yeah, I call it ad hoc investments in DEI, and now it's time to really turn on the afterburners, right? And
100%.
the companies that do so are going to have this incremental ROI based on all of the investments that everybody has done, maybe not as strategically as could have been done. So now's the time. Now's the time to strike. And you're going into an interview, you talk about diversity of thought, how this organization gets it, how the customer base is changing, how you lived in 5 different countries, how you speak 4 languages. English is not my first language. If I need to repeat anything, please let me know, right? You're hired.
Absolutely.
You're hired.
Absolutely.
I'm not letting you go.
That is how our economy grows and takes on the world. So that is such a perfect note to end on, because I think it is that diversity of thought that school is proof that we have grown very quickly, and it's by bringing in our community and listening to what the community, our client base, be they employers or students, tell us they need.
Absolutely. And York University has traditionally been a very diverse institution and at the cutting edge and so on. So I think everybody who's an alum or currently has the privilege to study at York should take a deep breath and say, let's bring it on, right? Now's the time. Canada will dominate. We have the natural resources. We have, everything. We have the water, we have electric, hydro, we've got it all. And we have some of the best and brightest in the world. So to me, I think the ingredients are all there, and I'm looking forward to a very prosperous future for Canada.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Successfully Ambiguous. Be sure to leave your comments below or find me on LinkedIn to ask your career questions. Like or subscribe so you never miss an episode. And join us for the next episode so that when opportunity knocks, you'll be ready to answer.